Okay, so this presentation is about Adobe Photoshop and how I used Adobe Photoshop to make changes to different images that I uploaded. So my name is Kelsey Long, and as you see, there's my contact information in case you need to get in touch with me. So let's get started. So for the first image you'll see on the left was the original photo, and we were supposed to straighten and crop a photo. Now, in my mind, I thought, oh, I can just rotate the image 90 degrees, but Photoshop had a different tool where you actually had to kind of draw a line along the horizon of the photo, which was a little bit tricky. And then it actually straightened the photo out. And then I actually cropped it so that the table and the messy stack of papers is not visible. So this image didn't take me too long to do. I did have to watch a tutorial video to know how to do this. I have not used Photoshop since high school, so the tutorial was definitely helpful in completing this task. This next photo on the left was an image that I took of my son Max, and I wanted to add text to it. So I simply in Photoshop clicked the little T for text and was able to change the font and the size and the color. They had a lot of really cool features for the text. I can see where, some of the influencers that I follow on social media like Instagram and Facebook, they have text that they will put on their photos, and I can see now how they do that. So this was kind of a fun thing. I actually sent this to my mom so that she could see a picture of Max with the text on it. So that was pretty cool. This was also pretty easy to do, but I did watch a tutorial just to make sure I was doing it correctly. Now, this one took me a few minutes to do. After watching a tutorial, I was able to remove the book that's in the front left, or I'm sorry, the front right corner of the image on the left, and just simply remove it. I used the little lasso tool to go around the book, and it was amazing how it filled it in with the content area that is kind of, I guess, their auto select of what they think needs to be filled in. So it kind of matched the floor. If you were to zoom in a lot, I think it looks a little blurry on the grains of wood there. But overall, I thought, hey, that's pretty cool if you've got to remove something quickly from a photo. So that was neat to see how to do. This next picture, I had to remove an object and then move it to a new location. So you can see in the first image on the left, the book was right next to Max in between the carpet and the rocking chair. And I moved the book to be kind of in front of him and in front of the rocking chair before the rug. So same book. I used a tutorial video. I actually had to play with this one because the first time I tried to move it onto the carpet and I just could not get the background of it to change to match the carpet. It kept trying to put some of the hardwood onto the carpet when I moved it there. So I figured out how to move it onto the hardwood so that it would still look like it blended in. For the image on the left, you can see there is a person in the background kind of behind Max on the field, and I wanted to remove the person so that it was just him. If you were to zoom in a lot, you could see a little bit of where the tree and the column back here don't match up. However, I did think this was pretty cool, and it actually didn't take me too long. I watched a tutorial on this one as well, but this would come in very handy for vacation photos or even at school. If you want to take a picture with a coworker and you have students in the background and you can't post the picture of the students, you could remove them from the picture so that they're not posted on social media. So I thought that was a pretty neat thing to learn how to do. Okay, this image on the left is my son walking across a bridge, and this was probably the most challenging for me. So we had to blur the photo's background to emphasize an object. So I was trying to emphasize Max walking across the bridge. I did eventually get through this and figure it out, but there was a lot of trial and error on my part. I watched 3 different tutorial videos to see how to do this, and I even read through the instructions on Adobe, and I just I don't do well just reading instructions. I need to see how it's performed and then kind of follow step by step. So the first time I did this, I got about halfway through it and someone came into the room and started talking to me, and I lost track of what step I was on. And I honestly just had to start completely over because I didn't know what I was doing. And then the next time I tried to do it, I think I had the blur dial turned up too much. So it just, you couldn't really tell anything in the background. So I had to adjust the blur so that you could still see a little bit of what was going on in the background. But that, so the focus was on him. And it was hard also to get the stick that's in his hand and his shoes and his hands to not be cut off. You can see it's not absolutely perfect, but I was pretty pleased with how this turned out for the amount of time that I spent on it, because it definitely took me a while to do. Okay, the panorama, I know you said to just put the panorama on here. I wanted to show the two images that I took, and then for the panorama, I had to merge them together. It was hard to get, and actually, if you were to zoom in kind of where my mouse is, it's a little blurry here, but I thought overall it looks pretty good. I tried to do 3 photos to do a full, like, longer panorama, but for some reason, when I was doing my third photo, it kept deleting it. So I really would like to go back and spend a little more time um, on this particular task in Photoshop, because it didn't seem to be as difficult as the blurring was for me, but I still was kind of being picky about stitching the photo together. But overall, I thought this is pretty cool. This would be neat if you took a bunch of photos on a vacation and wanted to put them together to see the full view. Or I could see where, as an educator, if you're taking a picture of a student's work and their work is, horizontal, you need to take multiple pictures. You could stitch their photos together on Photoshop to show the full bit of their work. And so on the left, you'll see a student. This is from several years ago, and I got permission from her mom to use this photo for this presentation. And she's holding her Valentine's box. But we all know as teachers that in a school environment, we have to be very careful posting images of our students. Most schools have a policy where you cannot post them on social media unless their faces are covered. So I thought this was a cool tool to use. You just kind of selected this circle tool to go over her face, and I had to make it a little bit bigger than her face so that it was a seamless blur. And then there was different levels of the blur that you could do. I did want to cover her face, but I wanted to still show, I guess, that it was a student. I didn't want it to just be one full blur. But I did see an example in a video that I watched where they were blurring out a license plate, and so they used a rectangular tool to blur instead of the circle, and had it a little bit more pixelated so that you could not see it at all. And that was also another way that you could have done this. So there were lots of ways that I could have blurred the student for this photo. So after reflecting on Photoshop, I can 100% say that the videos were more beneficial for me than the text instructions that are found on the Adobe website, or even when I was searching up how to do things. Several Photoshop and, I guess, Lightroom, which is a part of Photoshop and Adobe, the blogs that people who are in that business had written instructions. And, I tried to read the step-by-step bullets. I tried to follow those instructions, and I just really got confused on some of them. And so I had to YouTube how to do different things, and I watched tutorials, and that was much more beneficial for me than just reading the text. If I were to use Adobe in my classroom with third graders, there would be a lot of modeling required. I do not see how I could put my students in front of the computer and say, hey, here's what you're going to do. Read this list of instructions and get started. There would be some students who, yes, they could probably figure it out with the simple task after following instructions. But I have so many students who would raise their hand and say, I don't know what we're doing, or I'm confused, or I got stuck. And so modeling would definitely be key with this. I had to be modeled for as an adult. I know my students would as well. Another reflection piece for Photoshop was that hands-on practice is key. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I have used Photoshop, but it has been since high school. And so I have not touched Photoshop in, gosh, probably 15 years since I was in a graphic design class. And so I really had no idea what I was doing. I remembered the look of Photoshop. It had changed a little bit, but the tools, I remembered seeing kind of what they looked like. As far as what they actually did and the use of them, the only one I remembered was the lasso to select objects in a photo. So the hands-on practice was key for me. I made a lot of mistakes and I had a lot of trial and error, which leads me to my last point for my reflection. Overcoming a difficult challenge is very exciting. I cannot tell you how excited I was to finish the photo with the blurred background because I messed it up so many times and I struggled so much with that photo. So being able to complete that and it looking decent and looking like my child was not chopped to pieces, it was actually his full hands, his feet, his face, the stick, it was all there in the photo, was very exciting for me. Overall, I would recommend Photoshop. I think it's a really cool tool. I feel like older students would benefit from this more than my third graders, but I can definitely see where this would be useful and exciting to use.